Okay, I warned you, but it's happening now exactly as I predicted a few months ago. And the rush into Bitcoin is starting now. This is intense. Can you believe this? Crypto flight from the lira is beginning. Why Bitcoin is reaching new heights in Turkey, and why people here are fleeing into Bitcoin in a panic. They're moving into Bitcoin not because they think Bitcoin is so great, but because their own currency is exploding, or rather, imploding, right before their eyes. And that's exactly what I've been saying for a very, very long time, that this bull market or bull run could very well be driven by this. Not by greed, not because people just want the number to go up. They want even higher numbers. And that's made absolutely clear in this report as well. No, people are getting out because, as you can read here, for many citizens, switching to cryptocurrencies is apparently no longer speculation, but a matter of self-preservation. That means if you don't switch to Bitcoin now, you're basically drawing the short straw, and that fits perfectly with what's happening here right now. Someone from Germany didn't declare gold at the border and was sentenced to 30 days in jail. And that's the crazy thing, that we're now seeing these escape scenarios. People are fleeing the country with their gold, or they're fleeing within the country into other currencies wherever they still can, because the currency here is imploding right before their eyes. We're seeing hyperinflation-like scenarios not just in Turkey, but in many, many countries around the world. Lena Olden is also posting about it right now. Well, that escalated quickly. Her speech here in Las Vegas already has 200,000 views from a Bitcoin lecture. That's a lot, because she's simply talking about the train that can't be stopped anymore, which will first sweep through the emerging and developing countries, but later will also reach the first world countries. And anyone who thinks that what is happening here in Turkey and in other places couldn't also happen in Europe, in Germany, and so on, is, in my opinion, naive. Of course, it doesn't have to lead to hyperinflation right away, but periods of high inflation are definitely possible. Now, let's take a closer look at exactly what she said and why it's so explosive. But first, let's hit the like button down below so that Bitcoin can continue to gain traction here. This information needs to get out to people, because people need to be prepared. Bitcoin is the insurance, the hedge here. So make sure to hit the like button so the algorithm keeps promoting these videos. And also subscribe if you haven't already. I actually looked this up earlier, just by chance. Here you can really see what's going on right now. The price of a Big Mac went from 50 cents to $8, not a small change. That was mistranslated. It actually increased from 50 cents to $8, and between 1980 and 2025, it lost 40% of its size. Bitcoin fixes this problem. Just take a look at this. This was back in 1980, and this is in 2045. I'd even bet that back then, it probably had better ingredients than it does now. Although either way, I wouldn't recommend it to you. Not in 2018, and not in 2025. But of course, you have to decide for yourself what you do with your health, because that's how the Matrix works too. They give you all this fast food stuff, all this stuff pumped full of chemicals, and then you just eat it all up. Then you wonder why you can't think straight. Then you wonder why your emotions are shot. And eventually, you wonder why you wake up in a fiat spiral, where you can't even tell left from right anymore. Of course, this all works through the media, but it also clearly works through nutrition. Everywhere in the world, no matter where you eat get crap everywhere. Even when I was in the Himalayas, there was Coca-Cola and all kinds of junk everywhere. But good food, I mean, fresh products, products from nature and so on. Depending on the region, it's really getting harder and harder to find. Even here in El Salvador, sometimes when I look in the supermarkets, no matter what you buy, there's always something from the USA in it. Of course, that all comes from the USA. The influence is all these extra ingredients and additives. You just want to get some herbs, and then there are all these additives, and who knows what else mixed in. It just doesn't make any sense. So keep your eyes open here. But that wasn't really the main topic here. Now it's really about capital flight. So let's take a look at the top 5 countries that currently have the highest inflation rates worldwide. Venezuela at 172%. And if someone tells me again, oh, there's no hyperinflation, there's no high inflation. No, it definitely exists. Maybe we're just privileged here in the West. South Sudan at 117.6%. Argentina at 47.3%. I'm not sure if that number is still accurate. Iran is at 38.9%. So these are apparently current figures from Sharon Free, which are about a day old. With Argentina, I'm honestly not completely sure if that's correct. Yeah, let me see if I have any other numbers here. But it's not really about whether the numbers are exactly precise down to the decimal point. It's about the trend that stands out here, which is that there are a whole lot of shitholes in this world. And many countries are drifting more and more toward becoming one of those shitholes. And the crazy thing is, just yesterday someone commented, like, yeah, it's no problem if everything gets inflated and goes down the drain. Because we have Bitcoin, we'll benefit from it. The Bitcoin sector will just pump all the way to Valhalla and beyond. And the more the world falls into ruin, the more we can profit from it. Yeah, that's true to a certain extent. But of course you don't want to end up sitting there with a Bitcoin stash worth several million, whatever dollars. While the whole world around you is in ashes, everyone's crying, nobody has a job anymore, and everyone's depressed and so on. I mean, that's something you have to understand too. Our happiness also depends on other people. Of course, that doesn't mean it's like how it's often sold to us. Everyone is the architect of their own happiness. That's true to a certain extent. Everyone is a very, very powerful being. Everyone can manifest exactly the reality they want here. But of course, we're also interdependent. If your family is struggling, if your friends are having a hard time, if they're depressed and so on, that mood rubs off on you. I mean, just look at Germany. There's a depressive mood there. Go ahead and write in the comments below if that mood has ever rubbed off on you. So I've definitely noticed that ever since I left Germany, I've been on an absolute mood high. And even though I live confidently here, meditate, practice mindfulness, eat well, go into the forest, and so on, it still has an influence on a subconscious level. You can't deny that. Your environment definitely has an impact on you, and that's why you don't want to be sitting here as a Bitcoin zillionaire. I don't know, in your Bitcoin citadel in Valhalla with your Bitcoin bag, not even knowing where to spend your money anymore because Bitcoin has skyrocketed due to all the debt expansion, but the whole world around you is just lying there and dragging its feet. You don't want that, because then you always have to buy security, since the country isn't safe anymore. Because now we have civil revolutions and civil war. But now things are getting serious. Crypto flight. And by that, they don't really mean crypto flight, but rather Bitcoin flight, because it's really about Bitcoin here, even in Turkey. But Turkey is just one example. If we take a look here, the economic crisis in Turkey is driving more and more people toward digital alternatives, while the Turkish lira is dramatically losing value. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is experiencing an unprecedented surge in the country when measured in lira, with the cryptocurrency recently hitting one all-time high after another. That's a clear sign of massive capital flight from the Turkish currency system. That's always the issue. For example, when a currency is exploding, or rather, imploding, I always say exploding, but it's really more of an implosion, meaning it's heading towards zero, then it's often the case that the stock markets go through the roof as well. That's actually counterintuitive, because normally you'd think, okay, the currency is collapsing, so the stock markets should go down. But no, the stock markets go up, because of course the valuations are happening in this falling fiat currency. And if, of course, more and more money is being printed, but it's worth less and less, then the valuations in lira go up. But in terms of real purchasing power, we're not actually seeing any increases. That means, on paper, we're seeing a massive increase. But if we measure it in Bitcoin, in gold, or even in dollars, then we see that, for example, in the Turkish stock market, it's not really going up. In fact, at best, it's moving sideways, if not actually going down. But of course, on paper, it looks like there are big winners here. And if this happens in the Turkish lira, then maybe it's not that bad, because here we have the euro or the dollar as a reference currency. But the problem is, if at some point this happens with the world's reserve currency, and then the stock markets go up, but we no longer have any reference values, meaning we're no longer pricing things in another fiat currency, but instead only looking at everything in dollars, since most people calculate in dollars. And then we see, awesome, my Apple stock went up, my Google, my Tesla, everything went up. But the dollar is in such a free fall here that we don't even realize that, adjusted for purchasing power, we're not actually making any gains anymore. It's just because of the massive devaluation of money. Then we have a big problem. And that's why using Bitcoin as a reference point is always really, really good. It gives us a reality check to see if the stock markets are actually going up that much. Did my property really go up by 50% in the last 20 years? Or was 30 or 40% of that just due to the expansion of the money supply? Just as an example, in recent months, the lira has lost over 25% of its value against the euro. And on top of that, the euro has also lost value against Bitcoin. So it's always a matter of comparison. On June 4th, the euro reached a record high of nearly 45 lira. At the same time, the price of Bitcoin in the local currency is rising exceptionally fast. For many citizens, switching to cryptocurrencies is apparently no longer about speculation, but a matter of self-preservation. That's why I was telling you earlier, Bitcoin, even if you say, okay, it's too speculative and blah blah blah, too volatile, blah blah blah, that's all nonsense. Because Bitcoin here is a safeguard, a hedge. That means, just like you might insure a house in case it burns down, you also protect yourself here with Bitcoin. So that if the economy crashes, if the economy or the currency inflates, you have this hedge, so you don't end up out on the street. And the problem is, if you rely on a three-way diversified portfolio, you can do that. But if you don't include Bitcoin, then you have the problem that your whole basket is on fire, and your fiat money is losing value. Your ETF is a zombie. You really have to be aware of that. Because, of course, it might not even be able to keep up anymore. An MSCI World, for example, might not be able to outperform the increase in the money supply over the next 3 or 4 years if we enter a period of high inflation. Your job is dying due to a shortage of skilled workers, and soon your health insurance might only cover homeopathic sugar pills. And then you might have a problem with a diversified portfolio. I'm not speaking out against a diversified portfolio, but it really should include a portion for hedging with Bitcoin. And the problem isn't that Bitcoin is volatile, it's that your future is volatile, at least without Bitcoin. Because, as I said, the whole basket is basically on fire. Or what's also always great is when people say, yeah, let's just wait and see. And then you have to ask yourself, yeah, what exactly are we waiting for? For your bank advisor to explain 30% inflation while you're getting 2% interest on your savings account. By the time it gets to that point, it's already too late. Or you can wait until your Riester pension only supports you for 3 years after you turn 67, and then that's it. And it's not even your Riester pension, it's your regular pension. That means you really need to wake up now, because the current system is literally pulling the rug out from under your feet in real time. People are sitting in a burning house and still complaining about the smoke detector. If I were in that house, I'd get out immediately instead of constantly complaining about the smoke detector. Because of course it's going to keep going off if you're sitting in a burning house. And when the alarm goes off here, it's important to own Bitcoin for exactly the reasons we've just seen. And I found this news just absolutely crazy. Man from Germany doesn't declare gold at the border, gets 30 days in jail. I mean, how crazy is that? I don't know how much gold he was carrying. Wait, it says it right here. He had more than 10 kilos of gold with him. Yeah, okay, supposedly for retirement savings. So he just wanted to take his retirement savings abroad, which is totally legitimate. Okay, 10 kilos of gold does seem like a lot, but maybe he just didn't like living in that country anymore. And if he had declared it at the border, then of course he would have had to pay a ton of customs fees and so on, or whatever else you have to pay. Probably a border fee, customs, I guess. And then basically they take half of it away from you. Like, okay, you have 10 kilos of gold, 1 kilo stays with us, you can keep 9. Or I don't know what the exact rate is. And that's exactly why Bitcoin is so important here. For example, there's always that question at the airport, do you have any cash, gold, or anything like that to declare? You could even joke and say, no gold, no cash. But I've got a few billion on my Bitcoin wallet, and I'm just walking across the border naked. No one can do anything to me anyway. Or rather, you wouldn't actually say that, because nobody knows, and they don't even ask about it. And Joe Martin, this was definitely the comment of the year. He adds here, hey, breaking news, breaking news. Man from Germany crosses the border without declaring 24 words. Nothing happened. And that's exactly the point. You have your 24 Bitcoin recovery words. I always recommend you use a hardware wallet, like a TREZOR wallet. Basically, you set up an account with a TREZOR wallet. Then you log in, plug it into your computer, and 24 words will be generated for you. You write down those 24 words and store them in. It's best if you also check out a sealer set. You can find that in our Bitcoin Hotel shop below, or in the Bitcoin Hotel shop. And then you can use the code Bitcoin Hotel as well. With TREZOR, you can get a 10% discount on such a hardware wallet. Then you're all set, and you can walk across the border naked with just your 24 words, just like that guy here. And even if your hardware wallet breaks, you can just buy a new one in another country. It doesn't matter which hardware wallet you originally set it up with. The 24 words are universal standard, so you can always recover your Bitcoin. And then you can also check out 20 in a Bitcoin, the easiest way to buy Bitcoin in Europe. There you can buy Bitcoin directly, use the code Bitcoin Hotel to save up to 20% on fees when buying Bitcoin. And ideally set up auto wallet transfer right away so your purchases go straight to your TREZOR hardware wallet. Yes, it's a definite recommendation. Check it out. All the links are below. See you next time.